Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellknight here, bringing another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today I wanted to talk about the speculation about the newest champion that will be added to Legends of Runeterra, and what this means for League of Legends, but also Riot Games properties as a whole. I have made a video very similar to this before, which I will have linked on the description if you guys want to get the basis of the argument that I'm going to make later, but suffice it to say, let's just start with the character speculation. Now, there has already been a lot of discussion over on Twitter specifically, where a lot of the cards were revealed, but generally the consensus is that Nora is going to be getting added to Legends of Runeterra as a playable champion. Now, this is a big deal. The biggest reason why people think this is Nora is because she is literally referred to by name in one of the new cards that was revealed. A lot of the cards that were revealed also have to do with mysterious portals, which are very similar in nature to the portals that Yuumi and Book go through in their search for Nora, and in general, Nora, when she disappeared, would have had to have gone through one of these portals. She is also referred to by name. That's usually a pretty dead ringer. The other thing to consider as well is that Bandle City is in need of more champion cards, and that at this point we've tapped out of most of the obvious suspects. Amumu, Vex, and Corki, I believe, are still Yordles that do not exist in Legends of Runeterra, but none of them would work necessarily for every region. For example, if Targon needed another Bandle representative, well, you can't really do that with any of the current champions that exist. You couldn't really use Corki or Amumu or Vex to represent Targon, for example, so if you need to have another Bandle Targon hybrid character, who can you use? Well, there essentially isn't anybody left that fits the bill. Fundamentally, Runeterra will have to invent somebody, and it seems to me, at the very least, like they are choosing to use Nora, or Yuumi's owner, who mysteriously disappeared, as the new character. This seems to be the way things are going. I have been wrong so many times before, though, about characters from Legends of Runeterra coming to League of Legends, so I may be incorrect about it this time around, but I think that this has a much better chance of being correct, given that in this situation, this is not a character from Legends of Runeterra coming to League of Legends. This is a character who has only existed in the lore of League of Legends coming to Legends of Runeterra, and this has totally been done before. You can even think back to the Riven story, where all of the individual women who have beef with Riven, they all show up in the lore, of course, but then they show up as a sort of playable character, so to speak, in Legends of Runeterra for the first time. They never made it to League of Legends as actual characters. For similar reasons, I wouldn't be surprised if Rafen, or Misfortune's Quartermaster, actually showed up as a playable character in Legends of Runeterra. It would be a very similar kind of deal. And so, because of this, I feel like there's a pretty reasonable chance that we do get Nora as a champion card in Legends of Runeterra, which is a big deal, as this would mean she is the first champion card in Legends of Runeterra that is not a champion in League of Legends. And for a lot of people, this is sort of unthinkable. First, because they're disappointed that we're not getting Nora as a character in-game. They may be really excited about the idea of Nora and Yuumi's owner existing in general as a champion eventually, but then they haven't actually gotten to the point where she exists yet, and then she's going to exist in this complete other game beforehand, and you can kind of understand where there would maybe be some disappointment, especially when you consider the fact that she is not a champion. She's not even remotely going to be a champion, because we know the next few champions, and we have a Darkin, an Ishtali Enchanter, who's male, so therefore can't be Nora, and of course K'Sante, who's coming up next, who is therefore not Nora. So then what does this mean, then, for the design of League of Legends as a whole? Generally, I think this doesn't mean anything for League of Legends. I think the fact that Nora exists in Legends of Runeterra does not mean she is coming to League of Legends, nor will she potentially ever come to League of Legends, and I don't necessarily think this is a bad thing, and I don't necessarily think this is even remotely avoidable. See, at this point, and this is to sort of recap on the previous topics of conversation that I've had regarding this, but at this point, these games have existed separate from each other for years now, right? Legends of Runeterra has had its, third anniversary at this point. Wild Rift is coming up on that. Teamfight Tactics is on its 6th or 7th set by this point. These games have existed separate from each other for quite some time, and they all have very different design sensibilities. There are differences in what League of Legends requires versus what Wild Rift requires versus what Legends of Runeterra requires, even just as far as character designs potentially can go. And because of this, it's sort of unreasonable to assume that they will stay one for one forever. And in fact, they even really haven't, if you consider back to the previous TFT set, where we got Silco as a character, even though he doesn't exist in League of Legends or in any of these other games. And essentially, people sort of hand-waved that by saying, yeah, okay, whatever, but that's fine, right? Because he's never going to come to League of Legends, so, and it's just TFT, so he's just a unit, so why does that matter? There's a bit of a different connotation when you start referring to a champion card in Legends of Runeterra, again, which previously have all been champions, but now there's one that isn't actually a champion in League of Legends who just sort of exists separate from that. And a lot of people don't really like this idea that there are characters that could exist in these games that aren't champion cards in League of Legends, but I don't think that's a reasonable assumption to say every character that's ever going to be in these games has to be a champion first, or should end up being a champion at some point. I think that fundamentally, even Runeterra has an issue with some of its designs sometimes, where it's sort of being forced to match what League of Legends does as opposed to being able to allow the characters to stand on their own. Ezreal, for example, his original champion card design had a design that was fundamentally based around exploration. The whole point was that Ezreal would fetch you certain things from your deck, and once he's explored enough and discovered enough things, that then he would flip. But players basically complained. They said, that's not the character I know in League of Legends. The character I know in League of Legends is just this annoying guy who's hard to catch and who fires mystic shots all over the place, right? That's the character I know. And that's sort of a very short-sighted way then of approaching the character design. That Ezreal is so much more than just the really tricky dude who's hard to catch and throws mystic shots. He is an explorer as well, but people wanted to see that in Legends of Runeterra. Similarly, Nasus, who is a curator and archivist, who's known better in-universe for his scholarly achievements than for his warfare achievements, is nonetheless stuck with a design in Legends of Runeterra that apes his League of Legends design, which is entirely based around killing things, stacking up, and then hitting your opponent once for big damage. Again, a character design which was intended to be about the character, is fundamentally different in Legends of Runeterra than it could have been because players are expecting the League of Legends version. I think the interesting thing that Legends of Runeterra will be able to do with character designs that do not exist in League of Legends is that they'll be able to actually change these. That they'll be able to say, hey, we're going to design Nora as a character, and this means that we can do interesting things with her card design that otherwise we couldn't. If we had a League of Legends kit to fall behind, for example, we'd have to mimic that League of Legends kit in some way, shape, or form. Instead, however, we don't have to do that. We can say, we can do whatever we want with Nora, and then fundamentally, if League of Legends wants to try and add this as a character in their game, they can find a way to adapt this time around, but we're not going to give them that potential in. And I think that's a really interesting way of not only doing character design, but potentially creating characters that will feel very interesting and unique in Legends of Runeterra, doing champion cards that formerly you couldn't do at all because the design is just going to be so different from what you would otherwise expect, and instead, they'll be able to actually do some of these character designs that don't have to match up with a MOBA, which has completely different design sensibilities and requirements from a card game. I think that there's a lot of interest that this could possibly raise, and I think that in general, it's sort of past time that these other games were able to spread their wings and get away from League of Legends' shadow. I think that at this point, they all stand on their own as individual games, even Wild Rift. I know some people are going to say Wild Rift is just mobile League of Legends. It really isn't, guys, and if you think that, you have never played Wild Rift before. But these are all individual games. They all have their own individual wants and needs, and I think that the ability for the Legends of Runeterra creators to make their own champion cards makes a lot of sense. It not only solves some of their design issues, but allows them to do interesting things that they would otherwise be unable to. So anyways, that's gonna be what I think about this. Hopefully it is actually Nora, or this video was probably made for naught, but you guys will have to let me know if you think it's Nora down in the comment section below, or if you have any other thoughts about champions existing outside of League of Legends, first getting their start in games like Legends of Runeterra or Wild Rift or Teamfight Tactics. You'll have to let me know all that down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave it a like, and if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll talk to you all later.